Right. Are we all back?
No, not yet. We've still got Damien.
Oh, good. Yeah. Waiting for Damien.
No, well, it doesn't matter, does it? If he's not here, he can't have a comment on the thing, can he? It's his
No,
rules.
he can.
No, it's his rules.
Well, he never does. He's got any comment.
No, he doesn't have an opinion.
3, 2, 1. Yeah, okay. I haven't had a cigarette.
Have I got time to nip to the toilet?
Yeah.
If you come across Damien there, send him back.
Who's representing us at the inquiry then? Over the
Barrister.
Greendale?
I'll bring him.
Barrister. Right. So, what page was it on? It's not there. Okay.
So what I'm here, I just can't hear anything. To can't or won't, don't want to, what the difference is.
So I'm assuming Councillor Pullman is here. Is that Councillor Pullman from West Hill Parish Council? Yeah? Okay. And the agent is here, Mr. McNaughton? Yeah. And we haven't got Councillor Bailey. I don't know if... no, the other one, Jess.
Wendy's reading out something for her.
Oh, she is. Right.
Did you get hold of him?
No,
Oh, I'll go upstairs.
his phone was on straight to answer. It's all right. So I was told. Better late than never. No, better late than never.
Okay. 3 minutes, Damien. I think we'll allow that. Okay. So we're on final item for the afternoon agenda, item 11, planning application 250057, outline land adjoining West Hayes, Eastfield, West Hill. Are we online, by the way, Wendy? Live stream's on. Good.
Put the screen-
Okay.
Wendy, screen.
Oh, yeah.
Right, good afternoon. So, the last item for today, which is land adjoining West Hayes, Eastfield, West Hill. And, this is for, just go back briefly, erection, so it's outline application for 9 dwellings, which includes 4 affordable dwellings. And although it's outline, they are seeking to agree access, appearance, layout and scale at this stage, with only landscaping to be a matter reserved for later consideration. And members may well recall that this item was considered at committee in August, and it was deferred because the council's ecologist had not provided comments on the scheme, and it was highlighted that there were some ecological sensitivities on the site, and as such, it was important that we did have our ecologist comments, which have now been obtained. So a couple of updates. Firstly, on page 129 of the report, there's a reference to the loss of 3 Corsican pines. And just to clarify, in fact, it will only be 2 Corsican pines that are lost. So 2 healthy Corsican pines to be felled and 1 dead Scots pine to be felled. And also, somewhere along the line, a condition that was, I think, on the previous committee report had disappeared. So the recommendation is also subject to the condition on the screen there, which is effectively removing permitted development rights for the properties with regard to extensions out and outbuildings within their curtilages. So this is the application site. It's a site area just under 1 hectare. It's 0.95 of a hectare. The site itself lies outside of the built-up area boundary of West Hill, so it's a departure from the development plan. And we also refused permission in principle for the development of 5 houses on this site in 2024. And the site was also rejected as a local plan allocation, as it wasn't clear that the site constraints, which are principally tree impact, could be overcome. That was also the principal reason for the permission in principle being refused in 2024. There was no submitted arboricultural impact assessment with that application, and we were therefore not able to assess whether or not development could take place on the site without adverse impact on trees. Just to put in context that this development here, which is called Hayes End, is also outside of the built-up area boundary. So the built-up area boundary doesn't effectively start until here. And the application site includes the land necessary, obviously using the existing access roads that serve the Hayes End development to access the public highway at this point. So you can see from this Google aerial image a significant tree cover on the site. There was in, I think, around 2018, 2019, some clearing of this site. Nothing since then. The majority of the remaining trees that are on site are now covered by a TPO. We have now, this application when submitted is now accompanied by a detailed arboricultural assessment, and following some amendments and further reviews from the council's arboriculturist, they do not object to the proposal. The site itself, as we've mentioned, is outside the built-up area boundary, but there are footpath connections, however, from the Hayes End development right through into the village centre. And this just helps to show the location of the site in relation to West Hill and its facilities. So this is the site here. This is the Hayes End development, and there are walking routes through, and here you've got the village hall and the school here, and then this is where you've got the Morrison's Daily convenience store. So this is where the majority of the facilities within West Hill are located. So whilst it's outside the built-up area boundary, it's actually closer walk to the facilities than perhaps other parts of West Hill, and there are footpaths and some street lighting giving safe pedestrian access into West Hill, which is itself a sustainable settlement. So this is the proposed layout, and the layout is to be agreed at this stage. What it's showing here is areas where trees are to be retained, and this area is going to be set aside as an ecological area. The trees around the edges of the site are to be retained, and there would then be 4 terraced houses here, which would be the 4 affordable units, sitting alongside the 4 affordable units that were delivered as part of the Hayes End development, and then 5 houses of varying sizes within the development. And as you can see, they've been located now so that they're far enough away from existing crown spread of trees so that there wouldn't be damage to trees during construction, subject to suitable conditions, but also, in the view of arboriculturists, far enough away so there would not be pressure to fell or prune the trees significantly. You can also see that the site is quite well contained, so visually the development of the site will be mainly visible from the immediate locality, including from Hayes End. So this is just a similar layout plan, just showing more clearly the footprints of the houses. And this is just showing here, run through the type of architecture that is proposed. Again, this is all detailed to be agreed today as part of this proposal. And the architectural style and materials are very similar and reflect what has been built in the neighbouring Hayes End development. So this is various house types. So this is one of the 3-bed. The previous one we were looking at was one of the 4 beds. So very quite traditional style, using a mixture of brick, render and tiled roofs. So again, that was one of the 4 beds. And this is the row of terraced affordable homes. So 2 with entrances on the front, the other 2 with their entrances on the side, and all with patio doors out onto gardens. And these are all, so the middle ones are 2-bed units, and then you've got 3-bed units, so a bit of variety there in terms of the affordable offering. Again, just showing some of the architectural styles. So this is showing, looking into the site from the Hayes End development. So this is just the corner of one of the affordable units on Hayes End, and it's beyond this fenced off area here. So in this area here where you can see the pine trees is the area that the development is proposed to sit within. This is looking back from the site towards the Hayes End development. You can see the architectural styles and how they are quite similar to what is being proposed today. And this is views across the site from southwest to northeast towards the Hayes End development. So within the open area here where the development would be taking place. And this is a wider view across the site, again, back towards the Hayes End development. And we're now standing right at the back, looking across to the affordable units within the Hayes End development. And again, more views to the development. And this is a view from the entrance to public footpath number 5, which is runs alongside the southwest of the site. And so the site is beyond the trees, so on the other side of this treed and hedged area. And this is a view from the entrance to from the entrance of the public footpath to the southwest of the site, looking north. And again, the site is behind the trees in here. So looking at the key issues here, it's, I suppose, quite similar issues that we've been talking about earlier today. The site is outside of the built-up area boundary, so it is contrary to the development plan because it's deemed to be development in the open countryside, which only supports development essential for agricultural or forestry, or where there are policies that explicitly permit such development. And there are no local or neighbourhood plan policies that explicitly permit development of this type in this location. It's also notable that the site was discounted as a housing allocation in the emerging local plan. That was as a consequence of it was felt that the site was too highly constrained particularly due to likely tree impacts. And there will be some tree loss, although it is limited to 2 Corsican pines and 1 dead Scots pine. Looking at the positive aspects, so it's the conversation we've been having today. The requirement to meet our 5-year housing land supply means that we need to apply the tilted balance in favour of sustainable development. The applicant has demonstrated through arboricultural statements that the original reticence of officers and local plan designation to deem this a suitable site has been overcome, that we're now satisfied that development can occur without an unacceptable impact on trees. We've also now had detailed comments from the council's ecologists, because this is a priority habitat site and there are bats roosts within the site. There are dormice, so there are numerous ecological sensitivities within the site. The applicant has demonstrated how all of those aspects would be suitably mitigated, and the council's ecologist has accepted that, subject to suitable planning conditions, that any impacts on ecology can be adequately mitigated, and they do not object or recommend a refusal on those grounds. The scheme also proposes affordable housing, so that's 4 affordable homes, which is obviously a positive aspect of the dwelling, and there are no other technical objections to this development. On that basis, the officer view is that this is a sustainable location for development with ready access to a sustainable settlement, the centre of West Hill, and that it has been demonstrated that it can be sustainably developed without adverse environmental impacts, and that the benefits of housing, providing housing, including affordable housing provision, are such that the benefits of this development outweigh any harm, and applying the tilted balance in particular, it is deemed that this is sustainable development for which it is recommended that planning permission be granted. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Ormsby. So we'll move on to speakers, and from West Hill Parish Council, we have Councillor Francis Poole.
Right, thank you very much. The justification for this application even being considered appears to be the pressure from the tilted balance, which is trying to force the council into allowing poor quality planning for which consent would not normally be given. This doesn't, however, mean that the council should ride roughshod over other planning policies, which should still be respected. Neighbourhood Plan Policy NP26 requires that proposals for development should reflect the established character and development pattern of the village, and this should include maintaining the low density pattern in West Hill and allowing individual variation between units. Regarding firstly the density of this proposed development, I disagree with the calculations used by the developer. The quoted density is based on the total area of the site, whereas in a previous planning application for a site very close to the site of this application, it was agreed at this committee that the density calculation should be based on the usable area. This excluded from the total area an environmental corridor around the development. This in turn meant that the developer had to reduce the number of houses proposed to be built. To be consistent then, in this case, the area that should be used for the calculation of the density should exclude the dark corridor around the development, and also the grassland area, which we now learn from the committee report will not be available to the residents to use as a public open space. To be consistent between the two sites, the number of houses proposed to be built should therefore be based on the usable area of this site, and this should be in line with the density of adjacent areas. The usable area calculated is about half the area of the site. NP26 also requires that there is individual variation between units. The committee report at one point states in relation to the external finish that the detailed specification for these has not been provided and would therefore need to be secured by condition should outline permission be granted. The report, however, then goes on to say later that the intended use of matching external wall and roof finishes throughout the scheme. This appears to suggest that not only has the appearance been determined, but also that there will be no variation between individual houses, which conflicts with NP26. There are several other matters in the report that give cause for concern, but we can't go through all those in 3 minutes. The report does call for a habitat management and monitoring plan for the next 30 years, but does this assume that after 30 years people will no longer be concerned about habitat matters? The report also talks about maintaining the dark corridors condition. How will this be policed? By whom? At what cost? For how long? Or is this another 30 years? And bear in mind that this is a site that has been deemed to be of national importance for bats. I do understand the pressure that the council is under from the pressure of the tilted balance, but this doesn't absolve the council from still trying to maintain high standards of planning. This application fails to achieve those high standards, and I still question why we're destroying valuable open countryside to build more houses when today around 10% of all the properties in West Hill are on the market. And if people already have ample opportunity to move here if they want to. And I consider this application should be refused.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did wind up. Thank you. Now hear from the agent, Andrew McNaughton.
Thank you, Chair and Committee, for the opportunity to speak in support of this application. The Planning Department has engaged in a collaborative way throughout the determination period, resulting in a recommendation for approval. The deferral sought by committee allowed East Devon's ecologist to comment on the proposal and my client's subsequent clarifications of his questions. The ecologist sought further clarification in 3 main areas: an increase in buffer zone for commuting and foraging bats. The BNG was recalculated and resulting in a positive change to the overall figure. There is no external lighting proposed, and any internal lighting will be recessed to minimise any negative impacts on the buffer zone and dark corridors, with confirmation from a lighting consultant that the 0.5 lux less than that will be achieved. This has been accepted by East Devon District Council's ecologist, and for a suitable receptor site to accommodate a small element of BNG over a 30-year period. The impact on bats in the vicinity should be seen in context with the existing development at Hayes End that has not undermined the variety or frequency of bat activity. With the requested clarifications sought by East Devon District Council Ecology, these have been addressed by my client. The application will provide a substantial increase in linear habitat on site, with a small habitat loss being accommodated on a local receptor site. The partial loss of habitat relates solely to grass, areas of grass being incorporated as garden space. There is, however, a gain of 56% of linear habitat proposed through the extensive introduction of indigenous hedgerows that further encourage wildlife. The small habitat loss of grass area will be offset to a receptor site. Currently, East Devon do not have any of these, but my client has secured a suitable receptor site in Honiton that meets the necessary criteria. This is accepted again by your ecologist, and the necessary management and maintenance period over a 30-year time frame will be secured as part of a Section 106 legal agreement. It is important to note that the overall biodiversity of the site will be enhanced through this proposal. This is achieved through a generous 24-tree planting scheme to replace the 3 proposed trees for removal, and a significant hedgerow planting scheme totaling nearly 300 metres, providing ideal habitat for nesting birds, dormice and reptiles. To address the issue of density, the site represents an area of just over 0.8 of a hectare, covering all aspects of development, including buffer zones and ecological enhancement areas, all of which form part of the application, resulting in a density of 11.25 dph, in line with the surrounding character and nowhere near the levels cited by West Hill Parish Council. Finally, the recent appeal decision at Lower Broad Oak Road provides further support in favour of our scheme, which is in a more sustainable and accessible location to the centre of West Hill. We would ask that you approve this application in line with the Planning Department's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think we have a statement from Councillor Jess Bailey, which Wendy is going to read.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate the additional. Sorry, let me start again. I appreciate the additional ecology information that's been provided since this application was deferred, but I remain very concerned that the scheme still falls short in some key areas. First, the council's own mapping shows that the site is priority habitat woodland. That means it's recognised nationally as being of principal importance for biodiversity under the NERC Act. Priority habitat can't just be traded away. It's supposed to be protected and enhanced on site. The updated biodiversity metric still shows a net loss of nearly 10%, which clearly fails the new strategy requirement for at least a 10% gain. Second, the applicant is relying on an off-site habitat bank, but that land isn't yet registered with Natural England and no legal agreement is in place. So the gain they're promising simply isn't secured or verifiable. Third, this area lies within the sustenance zone for lesser horseshoe bats, yet there's still no Lux contour plan to show that the proposed dark corridors will actually remain dark. For a protected species, we think it's achievable isn't good enough. Without that data, the committee cannot be confident there will be no harm. Fourth, the council's ecologist has recommended a woodland mosaic habitat and proper soil testing before grassland enhancement can be claimed, but those essential steps are all being pushed to the reserve matters stage. That isn't in line with good ecological practice. Mitigation should be secured now. Finally, the site was specifically ruled out from the emerging local plan because of its ecological and arboricultural value. That reasoning still stands. For those reasons, I believe the ecological harm and uncertainty outweigh any housing benefit, and I would urge members to refuse the application or, at the very least, defer it again until a compliant on or off-site biodiversity gain can be guaranteed and proper lighting evidence provided. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, I think we're on to questions. So, Councillor Faithful.
Thank you, Chair. At the previous meeting, I highlighted a sign on the footpath, which I brought up on my phone, and I can read it out to you. I can show you the photo if you want. The sign says, private, what is it saying? Private property. These grounds contain dangerous trees. Please do not, whatever, from the footpath. That is, if you go onto the, if you bring up the site plan, if you go to the far bottom left-hand corner, yeah, that's right on the road. So you come in, there's a little corner about level with that. No, come back along the footpath, about there somewhere, on a tree. So you're facing straight across the site. That's what it's referring to. So how many of these trees are potentially dangerous trees? You're putting a load of houses in a load of trees which are suggested by the owner as dangerous trees. So how are we going to deal with that? Are you going to fell a load of trees to protect the houses, or are you going to demolish the houses to protect the trees? I don't know.
Well, we know there's one tree on site which is dead, so that may be the reason for the notice. Or
But
it could
it's-
just be that the owner has put that notice there to prevent people from trespassing. I'm not sure it has any bearing on this application, given that tree officers have commented on it. But I'll let Mrs. Ormsby enlarge on that.
So I don't know when that sign was erected, was put up, but we've have a recent, I think whether it was done last year, arboricultural detailed assessment of all of the trees on the site, which will have assessed their health and categorised them, and I would have identified if there were any, well, did identify that there was one tree which was in need of felling. So I think we can be confident that that assessment has been undertaken, and the health of those trees has been assessed by a qualified arboriculturalist.
Can I go back to the plan of West Hill? When you showed where the village hall is and the school, where are we going? Yeah, so, but you didn't make it clear that there's no access from West Hill Road to the village hall. At that point, you have to go all the way down to, well, I keep calling it Porter's Country Market, turn left and turn left again into Beach Park and whatever that one's called now, I can't remember, to get to it. It's not as close as you are suggesting when you were describing that on the map. So it's not quite as sustainable as you, yeah.
Thank you for pointing that out, members. I think, obviously, with that added element of the route, I think, it's still probably a closer walk than many other parts certainly in the southern part of West Hill.
Okay, any further questions? No? Okay, we can move into debate then. Who'd like to start us off? Councillor Barlow.
Don't want to disappoint, Chair. Well, again, I'm afraid I disagree with the officers on this one. I went up to have a look at the site. It's a dark site in there. There's a lot of trees in there. It's not like, so other ones we've passed in West Hill, they've been green fields. And I've always supported the officers and said, yes, substantial amounts of houses. I know it upset the local ward member up there. And I don't want to go walking up there anymore. However, this is different. This is for a few houses, but it really is. If you can get the pictures up, sorry, but the pictures do really show you where all these trees are up there. It is an important site for bats, etc. And I'm not the biggest green eco warrior. I will say we have to find a balance, but I do think that this is not a balance. This is going too far the other way, and I am staggered that the arboricultural expert thinks that you can get those houses in there and not have future pressure on them from the residents. You know, in your house, you want a little bit of light, and even though they're pine trees, it's dark in there. You know, there's a bit of grass growing in there, but there's a lot of areas where there isn't proper what I call thick grass in there. And I at worst, I would call, like Councillor Howe did earlier, for a site visit, at worst. But I cannot support this as it shows on the plan. I think at the end of the day, we have to find this balance between protecting the environment and building houses. And we have pushed for houses in this area. We have upset residents, which I know we do all the time, but we've upset residents up there. in the fields right next door to this, green fields, where we have filled them with houses. And I agree that it is sustainable and all the rest of it, but this is definitely an area that just didn't feel like you could put, well, 1 or 2 houses in it, let alone the amount we're talking about here. So yeah, I can't support this as it is, I'm afraid.
Okay, thank you. Anybody like to put a counter view? No? Anybody like to support Councillor Barlow in that? Councillor Faithful.
I would have to say I agree with Councillor Barlow there. It is knowing that place rather well. It is so, how you can build that many houses and suggest you're not going to disturb the root system, I think, I don't see it as achievable myself. I don't really feel it can happen. So I go along with Councillor Barlow on that.
Okay, well, in fairness, the proposed layout plan does show the root protection areas of the trees in relation to the houses, but I can agree with Councillor Barlow that there could be future pressure from inhabitants, although the tree officers seem satisfied now with the location of them, that won't happen. Any other speakers? You're going to come back again, Ian?
I just want to say, is it correct that it is of national importance, this site is national importance to the bats and things that feed up there, and the dormice and everything, and it's right pushed up against the road. You know, it's like we've built all the way up and we've given it this buffer, and now we're going to take that little bit of buffer away for the sake of a few houses. You know, it's not in the new local plan. It wasn't in the last local plan. We've turned it down twice before. Now, because of the tilted balance, we're coming back and we've got to squeeze these houses in there at the loss of the wildlife that we have squeezed to a very small area. And it's all very well the developers saying, oh, we won't have any lights outside, but all these houses, I'll guarantee, will have big windows in them because it's dark in that place anyway, dark in there. So you're going to want to try and let light in your house. And then when you turn a light on at night, what happens? You've got a dirty, great illuminated thing that, you know, will affect the bats and the feeding up there. So, as I said, I think if no one wants to, and I'm happy to say not support, but if they don't want to support that, I will happily say defer for a site visit, because I think if members went up there and saw this site, you would not believe you could put that amount of houses in there.
Okay. Do you want to propose that? I mean, it does seem like maybe it's a site we should take a look at.
Happy to propose then, Chair, that we defer for a site visit. And again, perhaps we could have the arboricultural officer up there to explain exactly how he thinks he can do it. Because, as I said, I didn't go on the site, it's a private site, but I stood at the gate, looked across it, and it was, yeah, just didn't seem possible to me to do that.
Yep. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Faithful? I saw your hand go up. So you'll second a site visit proposal. Okay, so we have a proposal for a site visit. We're going to be busy, aren't we? So those in favour of a site visit? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think that's unanimous apart from the chair and vice chair. I'm abstaining.
I'm abstaining.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll defer that one for a site visit then. In that case, that brings today's meeting to a close. Thank you all for coming. Thank you to the speakers, and thank you to all of you who've made the effort to get here. Okay, game over.